Plugging away at Henry VI Part 1 today, hopefully no garbage trucks. And today we get to hear from Joan de Pucelle, or Joan of Arc, and the Duke of Burgundy, because she has two very related monologues. They go together really well here in Act 3, Scene 3, and the Duke of Burgundy has like two lines in between that don't really affect a whole lot. So this will be Joan, and this will be the Duke. So we're in Act 3, Scene 3, and yesterday we were in Act 3, Scene 1, which, to wrap things up, Exeter yesterday was, he's thinking that England is not going to come out on top because there was like an old prophecy saying that Henry V was really awesome and Henry VI would lose France. So they go off to do the things that they're going to do. Richard Plantagenet is now the Duke of York again, blah, 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 blah. Act 3, Scene 2 takes place outside of Rouen in France, which is a town that the English had control of. And it starts out with Joan and a couple of her dudes, like, sort of creeping up wearing disguises and carrying sacks so that they can, like, knock on the door and be like, oh, we're just merchants sneaking in to sell our wares. And then they can, like, open the gates and let the French army come in and the French can take the city back, which is basically what they do. But the French manage to hold the city for, like, 30 seconds before Talbot and his guys show up and they take the city back again. And so the French are feeling kind of defeated at this point. They're pretty low, and Act 3, Scene 3 starts out with Joan like trying to reassure everyone that all is not lost, and them sort of blaming her for having lost the city, and she's like, but we just and she's like, oh, there goes the Duke of Burgundy on his way to Paris to fight some, so let's have a chat with him. So they call him in and he's like, who wants to have a parley with me? And they're like, Charles, Dauphin of France. And Charles is like, hello. And then he's like, this is Joan. And Joan turns to the Duke of Burgundy, who, given his name, you might guess he was originally like French by nature, by family, by birth, but he is on the English side at the moment. So she's like, you know, target, and she says to him, look on thy country, look on fertile France, and see the cities and the towns defaced by wasting ruin of the cruel foe, as looks the mother on her lowly babe when death does close his tender dying eyes. See the pining malady of France. Behold the wounds, the most unnatural wounds, which thou thyself hast given her woeful breast. Oh, turn thy edged sword another way. Strike those that hurt, and hurt not those that help. One drop of blood drawn from thy country's bosom should grieve thee more than streams of foreign gore. Return thee, therefore, with a flood of tears, and wash away thy country's stained spots. Either she hath bewitched me with her words, or nature makes me suddenly relent. Besides, all French and France exclaims on thee, doubting thy birth and lawful progeny. Who join'st thou with, but with a lordly nation that will not trust thee, but for profit's sake? When Talbot hath set footing once in France, and fashioned thee that instrument of ill, who then but English Henry will be lord, and thou be thrust out like a fugitive? Call we to mind, and mark this but for proof, was not the Duke of Orleans thy foe? And was he not in England prisoner? But when they heard he was thine enemy, they set him free, without his ransom paid, in spite of Burgoyne and all his enemy and all his friends. See then, thou fight'st against thy countrymen, and join'st with them will be thy slaughtermen. Come, return, thou wandering lord. Charles and the rest will take thee in their arms. So yeah, she's trying to turn the Duke of Burgundy and get him to come back and be on the French side, because that would be very advantageous if a guy who is so high up in the English hierarchy, I believe the Duke of Burgundy is actually Henry VI's uncle or something along those lines. So like if she could get him to defect and come be on the French side, that's a massive blow to them and might turn the tide of things. And because she is Joan, and she's lovely, and she's chaste, and she's strong, and she's blah, 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 and everybody's just magically seduced by her all the time, the Duke of Burgundy defects and decides he's gonna fight with France now instead of England. So see how well that turns out for them. And I'll see you tomorrow for more. Mwah.